On the afternoon of July 2nd, 1863, during General Longstreet's assault, in this area, coming toward our camera, was the 3rd Arkansas Infantry. The 3rd Arkansas Infantry had come through the Rose Farm and then here through the Rose Woods into this area. When they arrived here in this position, they came into contact with the 20th Indiana Volunteers, who were under the command of Colonel John Wheeler. Now, the 20th Indiana to their left was the 99th Pennsylvania Volunteers. But here were the 20th Indiana Volunteers, and they were in Ward's Brigade. And today their monument sits right here. And it says 20th Indiana Volunteer Infantry, July 2nd, 1863. Colonel John Wheeler killed nearby. Now that nearby position, fortunately for us, we do know of. Colonel Wheeler was defending this position here near where the monument sits when the 3rd Arkansas came up this slight hill here and attacked them. And he had his men retreat. Now, Colonel John Wheeler was on horseback, and as they began to turn to retreat, they began retreating in this direction here. And right over here where you see this boulder on the ground, John Wheeler was struck and fell from his horse and died right here next to this boulder. Now, we do know this because after the Civil War, a photograph was taken of this boulder right about here that shows the rock which had been marked as the spot where Colonel John Wheeler fell. And it says John Wheeler fell here on July 2nd, 1863. And we've done a lot of videos here at Gettysburg Historic Walking Tours, and formerly Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook, about Longstreet's assault. In fact, we did videos entitled Longstreet's Assault, and our whole Devil's Den series talks about Longstreet's assault, as well as many other videos, the wheat field and so on. But this is just one small part of Longstreet's assault that's not real well known. And today, of course, the markings on the rock have long disappeared, but the rock still sits here in the same position it was on July 2nd of 1863, where Colonel John B. Wheeler of the 20th Indiana Volunteers fell and died. And of course, he was taken back home to his home state of Indiana and buried. So again, this is a video on the death of John Wheeler, Colonel of the 20th Indiana Volunteers, here on July 2nd, 1863 at Gettysburg, in an area that many call the Rose Woods. The Rose Woods is here in front of us, and just over here to our right is the wheat field. So sometimes this has been mistaken as the wheat field, and then just beyond over in this direction is Devil's Den. But where we stand, and actually where this monument is, would be considered the edge of the Rose Woods and the beginning of Houck's Ridge. So John B. Wheeler, Colonel of the 20th Indiana, was killed here on Houck's Ridge on horseback, being assaulted on July 2nd, 1863, most likely by the 3rd Arkansas Infantry, who came up from where our camera is facing. And this is the monument and memorial to John Wheeler. This has been the 20th Indiana and the story of Colonel John Wheeler here on Gettysburg Historic Walking Tours.